today I'll cover two companies. One is Apple, the other one is Amazon. Okay, let's start from Apple. Total revenues 94 billions in the latest quarter. And if you just look at the trend, right, it goes up and down because there's clearly a very clear cycles there. I think all the big increase, right? Usually these are the last quarter of the year where Apple launched iPhone. I think the one that they announced was Q3, so we haven't seen the Q4 numbers that's upcoming next quarter. I expect that numbers will be similar to the Q4 last year. So that's why I say if you look at quarter by quarter numbers, right, you can't see the trend, whether it's going up trend or going down trend, right? It's harder to see. That's why if you just smooth it out, looking at last 12 months, you can see that the trend, right, is clearer. For example, like between 2021 to 2022, there's a huge increase, right? Then after that, since 2022, it flattened, and even there's a bit of dip around 2023. But I think for Apple, it is true that the companies, in terms of their growth, is somewhat on the lower side, especially if you compare to other big tech. So if you look at the revenue CAGR, right, this is comparing every quarter you compare against the quarter of the previous year. The recent quarter, the growth was 6%. 6%, I think this is slightly better as compared to, like previous quarters. Whereas if you look at January 2023, almost few quarters in 2023, right, when they compared to 1 year before, it actually dipped. So there's all this concern about whether their growth would slow down, is competitions heated up, and they are not able to find new revenue growth, right? Because for example, they have Apple Watch. I think that one also add a little bit. And then when it comes to Mac sales, iPad sales also is not super exciting. The one that actually propping up the revenues is mainly just iPhone. And even for iPhone, there's clear sign that people are not upgrading as frequent as like every 1 or 2 years. So I think that's definitely the concerns is mainly on the growth side. So if you look at the profit margins of Apple, right now it's at 46%. This is definitely a very, very healthy margin numbers. And if you look at 2020, right, although it looks low on the bar here, but actually you pay attention to the scale, it's actually even the lower side is 38%. And we have seen that there's some trend of increasing margin. I think this one is most probably due to the increase in the services revenue. Okay? This is gross margin. And then if you look at the EBIT margin, right, take this as the net income margin, because for net income margin, sometimes there's some like tax related items that actually make the numbers a lot more volatile, and those tax numbers, right, it affects number from quarter to quarter, but it is not a good indicators of their net income trend. That's why I take EBIT margin. EBIT margin means earnings before interest and tax. The most important one is to remove the tax away from the chart. So you can see that EBIT margin is also very stable. It's about 31%. I think this one is a testament of Apple. They are so good at maintaining their margins because their moat is strong. Their customers are very loyal to the product. They don't switch to other products when Apple increase their prices. That's why all this, right, let's say even if there's increase in the input prices, right, I think for Apple, they can just easily pass down to the consumer, and customer will just continue to buy. I'm actually one of the customers, so I can get the feeling. As long as I can afford, then I will buy. Maybe it's like when it comes to upgrading your phones, you don't upgrade as often. Like for example, for me, I upgraded from iPhone 11 to 16. So that's like, 5 years kind of jump, right? So that's a bit extreme, but still I am not moving up, because if your customer are switching out from your products as and when you increase the prices, right, then it is very hard to maintain margin, because input price increase, you might be pressured to keep the price. And in that case, your profit margin will shrink, right? Profit margin and pricing power, all these are, tied together. Next one, operating income. As you can see here, nothing fantastic about their operating income, although it maintained, but because the revenue growth isn't growing like 20+%, right? And even margin also increased slightly. I think that helped up a little bit, but operating margin wise, I don't think there's a huge increase. Next one is free cash flow. Again, free cash flow similar to operating profit is similar. It is able to hold at about 20 to 30 billions per quarter. So that worked out to be about 100 billion of free cash flow in a year, right? So I think that's quite impressive. It's just that this number isn't growing as high as compared to, let's say, like other companies like Amazon or Microsoft. And for free cash flow, this is looking at last 12 months. As you can see here, that there's increase in 2022 as Apple ramp up their sales, right? And then after that, sales actually plateau and also like slowing down in terms of their growth. And so you see the free cash flow also, there's a dip, and then now it's kind of like, you can call it like stable, about like 100 billions of free cash flow. I think this one, whether it will continue to go up or not, there are multiple things to look at. For example, are they able to, revive their growth? Are they able to continually increase their profit margin? Also, when it comes to capex side, are they going to spend a lot more to, capture the new growth area, for example, like AI, or are they spending a lot more when it comes to new product lines, right? So I think these are the things to watch out for. But right now, if you compare Apple versus other big tech, I will say they are the least exciting one, because when it comes to capex, they don't spend a lot of their capex. That's why their free cash flow also much higher compared to other companies. They just focus on like a niche as compared to they just take the monies and invest everywhere, right? So they are very disciplined when it comes to the capex. That's good from free cash flow perspective. Okay, you can take all this free cash flow, return to your shareholder in the form of share buyback. That's something Apple is doing. The thing is, if they continue with this kind of culture, this kind of strategy, right, then I think when it comes to growth, you can't expect much larger growth in the future. There's pro and con on all these different strategies. So talking about returning cash to shareholders, right, they've been using their cash to do share buyback. As you can see, this is not new, right? Since they launched iPhone in, let's call it like about 10 plus years ago, as iPhone sales ramp up, and then I think around like 3-5 years ago, when they launched iPhone, I think it's iPhone 6, and then with larger screens, right? So they have another round of upgrades, and then they have been, selling a lot of iPhones, bring in a lot of cash. They just take all this cash and return to the shareholders, right? And they do all this share buyback. You can see that the trend is very clear. It started out with about, let's say, 22 billion. These are all split adjusted number of shares. So the share outstanding from 22 billion now shrink to 15 billion, and they still continue with all this share buyback, right? So 15 billion, it will continue to come down. Their price is also a lot higher. So for the same amount of free share buyback, they can't buy back as much of their outstanding shares. So I think that's something to watch out for. And if company continue to do share buyback, right, you will hope that the price don't be so expensive. If the price just, come down, right, and they just use the same 100 billions to do share buyback, and this one can shrink a lot more. And as the outstanding shares shrink, your percentage of ownership increase, right? So that's something that as a shareholder, you want to see, right? If you focus on the financials, focus on all this discipline kind of financial management, I would say Apple is a good company to hold. But if you are someone who look for growth, I would say better look elsewhere. All right, next look at the price over earnings. So again, I'm looking at forward PE. So this is looking at the expected earnings over the next 12 months. Multiple is currently at about 31 times forward PE. It's on the high side for sure. If you look at this number, right, as compared to historical, right, just end of 2022, it was about let's call it like 21, and even as recent as mid 2024, it was about 25 or 26, right? So now went up to 31. I think definitely is on the pricey side, even compared to their historical numbers. So I would say that Apple is not cheap at the moment. Okay, sometimes if you just look at forward PE, if a company is growing very fast and you just divide that by a high growth rate, at least on the PEG ratio, right? This is PE divided by their growth rate. It might looks okay, but in Apple case, it is not the case because their growth isn't fantastic. And you take the 31 times forward PE divided by the growth rate, right? It is at about 3 times, right? So 3 times PEG definitely is considered quite highly valued. It's just that if you compare to their own historical numbers, there are periods where the PEG is even higher, for example, as high as 4 times just not too long ago, right? This is something to take note of. And then, of course, lastly, let's look at the EPS, 5-year forward EPS growth, right? So analysts are expecting the earning per share to increase by 10% over the next 5 years. I don't know where this will come from. Probably, between 3 to 5% growth is coming from the revenue, and also margin, you can expect it continue to increase slightly as there's more focus on the services, which is having a higher margin. Okay, this one is just an overview of the company. As you can see here, whether the company is growing or not, I think a lot still depending on their iPhone revenues. I know they have been, refreshing their iPhones to iPhone 16. Recently, they just launched their new MacBook Pro based on M4 chips. I think those are really good product propositions, right? And also iPad is quite attractive. But remember, these two lines, right? I don't think there's something that push the customers to buy a lot more. It is good value for money. It's just that it's not a high growing segments for MacBook and iPad. The rest are quite small, and even the Vision Pro also, I don't think they're selling that well. So I think when it comes to the overall growth of the companies or even the margin, right, everything still need to look at iPhone iPhone, whether they are able to revive the growth, encouraging their customers to upgrade more often. So those are the things to watch out for. So now let's talk about the super cycle. It seems that there's not much of a bull thesis. And the entire phone market, right, is matured market. It's not like AI, right, which is still new, still growing. You just maybe just observe your own, like behavior, right, when it comes to upgrading phones. Let's say 5-10 years ago, people are upgrading every year, because every year when you have a new launches, right, you can see that the improvement, in terms of the processing power, in terms of the features, everything is just a lot bigger as compared to now. Every year, of course, there's a new iPhone, but if you compare to the previous year iPhone, right, it's just incremental improvement. It is a mature market. In a mature market, and if Apple is not going to, for example, they don't plan to reduce their price significantly and just use price to attract their customer, right? They want to keep their profit margin, right? So how are they going to entice the customers to upgrade more, right? I think the one thesis is talking about the super cycle coming from Apple Intelligence, because I think in terms of the speed, right, even let's call it like M4 chip or whatever chip, right? Even though it is faster than last year chip, but as a consumer, do you really need that additional 5-10% or even 20% increase in speed, right? You don't need that. But now, because of there's this Apple Intelligence, right, it says that only iPhone 15 Pro onwards and iPhone 16 onwards can use Apple Intelligence. So for all the customers that are using iPhone 14, 13, right, so as they see more and more features coming from Apple Intelligence, and if there's just, let's say, 1 or 2 features or functions that they find it very useful and they need that features, right, they will just need to upgrade, right? So I think the distinctions between phones that has Apple Intelligence versus those that don't have Apple Intelligence, right, that should be enough to entice some of these customers to upgrade. That's why if you look at their iPhone sales, right, it is not like a linear kind of growth. As and when there's feature or there's characteristics that can entice customers to upgrade, right, then you will see that there's a pickup in terms of the sales, right? So I would say that another example was back in, I think, iPhone 6 Plus, right? That was the first time when they launched a larger size iPhone. Because before that, they are the one that's having, iPhone 5, right? Very small screen size. Whereas Samsung, other phone manufacturers, they all have 5 inches, 5.5 inches screen. So it's a very stark difference, because for those who prefer a larger screen size, right, they will just go for other phone manufacturers, right? Go for Samsung and Xiaomi or others. Then after that, when Apple just launch the larger size, right, customers come back. Indeed, even things like larger screen sizes, right, is able to increase their sales. Now, the thing is, when it comes to Apple Intelligence, are they able to increase or not? I think that's the questions that we're all trying to, figure out. And I think these things is not like one-off increase, because Apple Intelligence, they just rolled out 18.1, right? I actually tested already some of these features. For example, if you type certain message, you want Apple to, you want your iPhone to help you improve the grammar, rewrite it in a proper way, you can just highlight and then you can just, one press, they will just help you rewrite again, right? I think these are quite useful feature. And the good thing about these features is not like it is fantastic and you can't get it elsewhere. Because if you have been using ChatGPT, all these features are, you can use ChatGPT to do it, right? The difference between Apple Intelligence versus other AI tools is that for other AI tools, you need to flip to that apps. For example, you need to copy and then paste it to ChatGPT and then copy paste it back, right? So there's a lot of back and forth. Whereas for Apple Intelligence, even though it is not like as powerful as ChatGPT, but it is embedded in their OS, meaning that wherever you type, you can type in your message, you can type in WhatsApp, you can type in Instagram. As long as you are able to highlight your text, you can straight away just do all these changes right at that screen, right? So I think it is just a more seamless way of using AI. And I think even now, right, there are not many people who care about all these things, because it barely started, right, all these features. And I would say that for the next 2 to 3 years, right, there will be more and more this kind of features. Maybe it's just like small tool here and there that I will say cumulatively, if you add up all this together, right, it forms a good value propositions for their existing customer to upgrade, and also to attract more customers into their ecosystem. Because all this, right, I think the good thing about Apple is that if you use Mac, if you use iPad, they're all seamlessly integrated to each other, right? And now on top of all this, you layer in with Apple Intelligence. So I would say that it's very attractive propositions. The difficult thing is just that now all these features, we just see a glimpse of it. We still need to wait for the December rollout of 18.2, where there will be these integrations with ChatGPT, right? It will make the user experience a lot better as and when they roll out all these features. So I would say these are the things to look out for, because if this thesis play out well, right, you see a big pickup in iPhone sales, right? And all this is actually helpful for the other lines of business, because more people buying iPhone means that there will be more people who are open to buy, let's say, Mac or iPad. And then after that, all this will also translate to increase in revenues in other services lines, right? So Apple Watch as well, right? So I think all this will tie together, but Apple Intelligence, this is the the catalyst. But if these things come up very slow, probably you still need to wait 1 or 2 or 3 years. And if these things after 2 or 3 years still they are not able to come up with something that is like good enough, then I would just say that then you just suck thumb and just own a companies with very slow growth, with high PE. So they might like just lagged as compared to other tech companies just because they didn't play this well. So, but I think judging based on their focus on the user experience, their focus on the quality, even sometimes, not sometimes, actually often Apples are late to the party, but still because of their quality, because of the seamless experience, right? I have confidence in Apple of making this work. It's just that we need to be patient. It will take a while, probably even 1 to 2 years or 3 years to play out, right? But at least something to look forward to. It's not just like looking at their current growth rate, everything die down. Then if you really don't think this is a thing, right, then I would say there's not much of a reason to own Apple at this moment. Okay, final point. Just FYI, I went to Apple Store last week, so just want to try out their Vision Pro. I just want to see these things, how good it is, because usually for other products, right, you can just watch a review online, but I would say that for Vision Pro, right, you really need to go to the store to try it out. Actually, you can just book an appointment, quite easy to get the slots. So there's dedicated Apple persons to serve you, to explain to you, to teach you how to use. I think overall the product is very interesting. Whether I will buy it or not, I would say right now definitely no. First thing is that it's quite expensive. Second thing is that I think in terms of the entire user experience, for example, when I use it, right, there's still a bit of light bleeds into my visions, and that's quite annoying. So I think the product, maybe they still need a couple more iterations to make it good and cheap. That's my first impressions of the product. But when it comes to this overall category, right, I'm actually quite bullish, because there's a few demo that they show us, right? For example, they show us the demo of you watching, let's say, a soccer match, right? The view experience is completely different as compared to watching a TV. Even a big TV also, I would say, is different, because really you watch it using Vision Pro, right? It's as if you are sitting in that environment and the actions just happen in front of your screen. I would say that it's quite impressive. It's just that I would say it's still early based on whatever, based on the technology that they have now. And also all the user interface where you use your finger to click, right? I think that one, maybe it won't take long for you to get used to it. Although for me, first time experience still take a bit of time to know how to click. So I think overall that's Vision Pro. I would say that quite interesting doing due diligence on the product, but this one need to go to store. I encourage you to try it out yourself. Alright, that's Apple.